Hello, everybody. Good to be with you. So today we're going to discuss the 3 stages of awakening. And before I get too far into this, I got to back up and tell you what I've done is I've simplified this for the sake of being able to give you something to give you some value. And because I could come out here and I can say the truth, which is that there's 3,000 stages to awakening, but that's not going to be helpful. So what I've taken is the major segments of awakening and divided it up into 3 stages. So you have a better idea as to what's coming or where you've been or where you are. So the first stage is really, well, the first stage comes prior to the first stage because the real first stage is, pre-awakening. And you are, because awakening begins really, or the search for awakening at the very least begins with usually for a unit hearing the word something like enlightenment or waking up. The unit hears that they're the unit character, the body that the body is closely related to. The character comes to hear that there's something else, that there's something other than this available, and it comes and it's told out as if it's a higher state. It's a higher state of being. It's a much cooler state than, well, this state. And most important of all, it's an other state. It's some way out of here, because that's what we're looking for, is how do I get out of here? Right? We don't know where we are, but we know that wherever we are, this ain't quite right, and we'd like to get out of here. And we'd like to get into the state where everything is all right for us, basically forever. And we, some of it's taught, and some of it's just made up. But this is this idea that there's another state of being that is higher than this one and more awake than this one and all that. It's a sucker punch. We just go for it because these unit characters, they're addicts. Mine really played out on a large stage, in a sense that I was addicted to so many things, and pretty much everything that ever felt good. So that's going to include sex, money, power, dope, alcohol, and there's gambling. Okay, that was, oh man, that would like to ruin me. But many things, right? I was just addicted. I was just an addicted character, right? There was a personality here who, once it had a little bit of something that was good, the only thing it could think of was that the more is what I need, and I got to go after more. So that's really the first stages, and that goes through many things, and it may include glimpses. It may include glimpses of the truth. And the reason we call them glimpses is because they don't last very long, is that it may last just a second, or it may last 10 seconds, it may last 10 minutes, but a glimpse is not going to be any more than that. If you any more than that, it's an awakening. It's just not the classic awakening that we're all waiting for. And actually, the classic awakening, if that's what you're waiting for, you got a long wait coming, because the classic awakening is the one you've made up. See, because I could say the classic or classical awakening, and I've got a pretty good idea what that means. When I was reading the books and meditating and doing all this, I mean, I built up quite a little story about awakening and about enlightenment and all of that. And you did the same. And while there may be some points that we would agree on, certainly my story of awakening and enlightenment would not be identical to yours. So it really, when we look at it, enlightenment is a story. It's a story that we make up as we go along. The more we learn, the more we embroider. And the more we embroider, the darker we get. Because this thing is actually very, very simple. And this teaching is out to strip it of all the embroidery. Because I hear so much embroidery. Sometimes I can't hardly hear anything but embroidery. And I'm here to strip that. And I'm here to strip the mystique out of it. This is not this is awakening. There's some art to it, and there's some science to it. And this teaching will employ art, science, or raccoons. Anything that will work for you, I'm proud to employ. I don't care how something works. I just want to know if it does work. And it needs to not only work, but it needs to work consistently. It needs to work predictably. And it needs to be something that I can really stand up against the wall and say, come on, here, I'm gonna convey this to you, or I'm gonna show you this. There's going to be a transmission that takes place. And when we're talking about transmission, that the problem is that builds up too much mystique about a teacher. And hell, that's a terrible road. You got to come out of that. So if you've got a big story built up about your teacher, just unwind it, even if it's about me, and I hate to say it. I'm sure there's some people, I know that there's some people out there with some lovely stories because they write me and they talk to me. And I, hate to rain on the parade, but this thing ain't worth bragging about, right? It bragged all of its life and there was nothing to brag about. And then there was an awakening and I thought, well, hell, there's nothing to brag about. And it still brags once in a while. It's just meaningless bragging, right? It's got nothing to brag about, in fact, but that's a pattern here. It's just meaningless. So I don't pay any attention to it. I hope you don't. So let's get back to the 3 stages of enlightenment. The first stage of enlightenment is that we have to recognize true nature. That's the first stage. And those glimpses, that's a recognition of true nature, but it's not but there's just no duration to it. So, we may only, we're only going to see a part of it, because even when we have a Big Bang awakening, the first time around or whatever, we're then going to think we know it all, but I can promise you that we will not. I remember I was about a year into awakening, and I heard Adyashanti. I was following Adyashanti pretty closely at the time. And I remember him saying, somebody asked him about, clearing or whatever, and he gave them the worst answer I ever heard, which just happened to be true. And he said, well, the truth is it takes about 5 to 15 years to get into this thing, to really, and I thought, well, he ain't talking about me, because I was always the exception to every rule. And so I knew he wasn't talking about this unit or this character or whatever. He wasn't talking about Fred Davis's enlightenment, by God. And then when I got to be about 5 years, things really began to come together for me in a big way. I was really struggled for 3, but for the next 2, it was really came together very quickly and very, very smoothly. And at the end of 5 years, that's when at the end of 4, I began to teach, because that year in between 3 and 4, that's where it really came together for me. And by the 5th year, I could explain it to others. But the recognition, just coming to recognize what true nature is, and we usually come to recognize what true nature is by coming to recognize what true nature isn't. And when I say this, there's only oneness, so I can't say that I am not this unit, because I can't, like if I said, I'm every unit but this one, then then this is the thing left outside of oneness, and that there's nothing outside of oneness, so that can't happen. So there is the recognition is to recognize is that I'm not exclusively this unit. See, there's a big difference between saying I am not this unit, because that's what we want to say is I am not the body, I am not the body, I am not the body. It's what we're taught to say, I am not the body. It's what we're taught to say, it's what we're taught to see, and it's what we're taught to believe. And it's very skillful, and I'm not going to, give anybody, any back talk that uses that. I use it myself. But what I want you to notice is that it's just not exactly true. Because of the oneness factor. And oneness is the awakening to a oneness that is classical enlightenment, if you will. That's where most of you who are lucky enough to wake up, that's where you're going to end up. And it's great. It's just like, because then all of a sudden it's like a kind of like a lucid dream, but don't think it's Fred's lucid dream, because it's not. It's awakeness's lucid dream. So coming to find out that you're not this body exclusively, and guess what? And you're not this glass of water exclusively, but you can't say from the standpoint of oneness, oneness is a story too. Notice that it comes and goes. And oneness arises as consciousness does. They are hand in glove. And notice that consciousness comes and goes. It feels eternal, doesn't it? But where was it prior to the birth of that unit? What do you remember prior to the birth of that unit? And I know there's some people that have experiences of what would they call earlier lives or past lives and stuff like that. But I would have to argue with that a little bit. If it's a past life, then your past life is part of the dream. There's nothing wrong with that, having that past life, and there's nothing wrong in claiming it and believing in it and doing anything you want to. Just recognize it's not actually true, because there's no one here to have a past life. I'm actually I am having billions. I don't know how many, but I know on this planet I'm having close to 8 billion parallel lives. That's just in my human forms. I'm also that same brightness, the same awakeness that's behind every bird, every squirrel, every rabbit, every dog, every cat, every horse, every cow. And guess what? I am that same brightness, even with the mayfly. And the mayfly they hatch out west, and it's a little bug, and it lives for 24 hours. Trout love them. That's the reason it's a big deal on mayflies, is that everybody fishes the mayfly hatch. I used to, but till I got to where I couldn't fish anymore. And doesn't mean that you need to get there or anything like that. It's not a matter of guilt, and it's not a matter of that I'm now so enlightened that I don't fish. I just stopped one day, right? I caught a fish, I noticed it bleeding, I put it back in the water, which was catch and release, and I noticed it went to the bottom, and that was years ago, and I've never fished again. Just couldn't do it. So at any rate, recognizing what you are not, which is you're not this body exclusively, you're not anything exclusively, you are the all-inclusive one. See, we're talking about non-duality, and what does non-duality exclude? Nothing. It excludes nothing. And everybody wants to have that non-dual shift, but how does oneness have a non-dual shift? Because it's just oneness to begin with. So what it amounts to is that oneness gets an insight through one of these characters, and it says, oh my God, there's no Fred. So seeing what you're not, really the most important thing to see that you're not, is not these physical things, although because you are these physical things, all of them, but you're just not exclusively any one of these. But the thing to notice that you're not, for me, was that I'm not a Fred Davis. That's what I had to come to see. There's no Fred here. And if you've woken up, maybe you come to see that same thing too. And you may not remember how it worked, but I can tell you how it worked, because that's the science part. Is I've done this so much and I've looked at it that I know right where somebody is. Sometimes I can tell with clients. I had a client yesterday, and she started in. I said, yeah, I can see that you're doing much better. And she looked at me, because we barely words had passed, and it was, but I could look at her and see that she was much clearer than she had been. And a month ago, she was clearer than she had been then. And I don't know that that's going to be steady, but I wish it for her if it happens that way. But just recognizing what you are not, which is you're not this body exclusively, and you're not, in my case of Fred Davis, your case of Bob or an Alice. Because ask me how much Fred Davis weighs, and I have to report to you 0, because there ain't one. And when you ask me how tall is Fred Davis, I'm going to tell you 0, because there ain't one. And if you ask me how much volume does Fred Davis take up, I got to tell you 0, because there ain't one. I understand there's a unit here, but this unit is not a Fred Davis. I mean, it's been tagged Fred Davis, but when it got here, you know, the doctor didn't look down and say, look at that, it's Fred Davis. So a unit arrived here, but Fred Davis was an invention. And that's what we come to see when we recognize true nature. So what we all thought, what I thought I was taught, was that recognizing true nature, that was it. That was enlightenment, recognizing true nature. And it's the beginning, or, you know, if you can skip all the years of pre-awakening, which were also the beginning, but it is the beginning of the awakening experience, if you have one. And so your experience may be exclusively that. Oh, there's no Fred. May not be any bells, not be any whistles, may just be, golly, this whole thing's a story. There's no Fred. And it's, you know, and that may be a wow bang and your head may fly open. And it may be just a, golly, I can't hardly believe it. I've had so many people wake up with me, and they've been all over the extremes. So the second thing you've got to do once you recognize awakening, which we thought awakening was going to be it, but it ain't. And the second thing that you've got to do is you have got to accept what you have seen. This is not so easy. Waking up is easy compared to clearing. Clearing is coming to believe, coming to accept, coming to know, eventually coming to the absolutely unshakable conviction, golly, I'm awakeness. Notice that I'm not saying that I'm awake, because this unit never woke up. Yours is not going to either. What happens is there's no being or entity that wakes up and goes, wow, there's just not such a thing. Awakeness is like a verb. It is the brightness that is right here. It's the brightness that is powering this voice, and it's also quote, powering those ears over there. It's the same thing. It's really this awakeness, and all of this. These are awakeness as expressed through form. This is consciousness as expressed through form. And then there is the formless, which is not other than this. But what you are is that which is prior to the formless, which is also formless. But it's not, we can't say it's formed or formless. You can't say anything about it. You can't say it's alive. You can't say it's dead. You can't say, you know, you just can't say anything at all about it. It's just, so what we do is we just stay the hell away from trying to describe it. And just notice that you can't see it. We all want to see our true nature, but you can't see your true nature. It's a matter of coming to be your true nature. And when I say it's a matter of coming to be your true nature, I don't mean that you've got to do something new to become your true nature. I mean, true nature is all there is. If you want to find out what true nature is, look around. Look inside your house, look outside your house, look up at the sky, look down at the ground. And what you're seeing is true nature as expressed within relativity. So it is the concrete manifestation of that which, of the formless. It's not other than. The difference is that this is not other than the formless, but it is not equal to the formless. Because in order for there to be a unit here talking to you, in order for there to be a so-called Fred or Fredness here talking to you, there has to be the unmanifested first. The manifested doesn't arrive unless there's unmanifested first. So, and this is the expression of that unmanifested awakeness, of that, I'm going to say consciousness. It's consciousness that does not know itself. You have heard that there's nothing but consciousness. That's true. What I want you to notice is that consciousness has a way of coming and going. There is the consciousness that I know that feels like that I am here. And I noticed that prior to the birth of this unit, it did not feel like I was here. I did not claim to be I was here. I did not know that I was here. Does that mean that that consciousness did not exist? No, but it wasn't. It means that it wasn't aware of itself. Consciousness, I don't understand it, so I'm not going to be able to explain it to you. But consciousness is expressed as formless and form. And you know, the Heart Sutra, emptiness is form and form is emptiness. It ain't kind of like form is emptiness and emptiness is form. So we have to come to accept that we are the consciousness here. We could call it, if you want to bring it down to something localized that you can really understand, it's your attention. And it's not your attention, it's attention. It's not your attention because you are attention. What is attention? It's focused awareness. So this thing that is aware of all of this, can you find anything outside of your attention right now? And it's not your attention, you are attention. You're not other than attention. But what about attention prior to the manifestation of one of these units? We can't speak out of it. There is no attention there. So consciousness there may be unmanifested consciousness, but it does not know itself until there is the manifestation of one of these, or a rabbit or a dog, at which point the sense of being arises for consciousness as consciousness, only now this is the manifested expression. So we got to recognize our true nature, and we got to accept what we've seen, which is that we're not one of these. And the awakening has occurred, and we are slowly coming to accept it. And nobody jumps off. Nobody's got it all. Nobody comes out the gate fully clear. Nobody that I've ever met. I can't say nobody because I don't know anything, but of the folks that I have met and worked with and heard about, nobody comes out the gate the way that we thought we would. You know, we thought that recognition was full-blown enlightenment, right? I did. And until it happened, and I noticed that, oh, wow, I knew so much. And I knew a great deal more about non-duality 15 years ago than I do now. But I've been fortunate enough to forget what I knew and recognize that I never knew it, that it was just ideas, that there was someone here who could know something. We have to see, we have to recognize true nature, and then we have to come to accept that we are this, and that's a process. The recognition, it may be a process too, because it may creep up on you. But for many people, there tends to be a sort of little event. Like I had somebody write me this morning who just had the event, right? And he's just tickled to death. But he sees that he didn't just have the event. He sees the truth, and that you're going to have to come to see for yourself. But when he wrote me and used the language that he did in the way that he did, there was no doubt in my mind that I had just written myself a letter from somewhere else, an email from somewhere else on the planet. That was lovely. So what's the third thing we got to do? If we have come to recognize that true nature is not other than this, then you can see why, when we went to India, how, that it was a step away from the truth, because true nature went looking for true nature. And it also did that when it went to a retreat in California. It was true nature going to see if it could find true nature. So it's a step away from the truth. It's always when you go looking for true nature, it's the first step is a step away from the truth, and every step thereafter is a step away from the truth. So the third thing that we have to do is we have to claim the awakening. And I have a video on this called Claim Your Awakening. I would advise you looking at this. And I have some, you can go to Fred Davis, go to YouTube or even Google Fred Davis practice menu. It'll come up either way. And go Google it, don't just YouTube it. You go to Google and you Google Fred Davis practice menu, then you'll come up with a page on the website which has lots of very helpful videos that will help you wake up, that will help you clear, and that will help you claim your awakening. And the reason I say claim, and it's like, there's no one there to claim the awakening. Don't think I don't know that. This is not a slip of the tongue, and Fred has ceased to know what he's talking about, ceased to be non-dual. There's no Fred to begin with. But this teaching, it understands the ins and outs of all of this. So all those people that have caught me in a mistake, because God Almighty, he said that, this here, good, but just notice that your attention is looking for a way out. There's not a real burning desire there to wake up, because it's looking for the way that I can slip out of this instead of the way that I can slip into this. But at any rate, I have to know what I'm talking about, because I am what I'm talking about. You are what I'm talking about too, but we are the same thing. So there's no separation. There is differentiation. We don't look alike. This unit and that unit and the other unit. And I don't look like a wave, and a wave doesn't look like a lamp. So there's differentiation, but there's no separation. There's still all of it's one thing going on in here. One. So claiming your awakening is coming to recognize when you woke up, like the whole time, all through my life of 52 years, 53, whatever it was, there was the suspicion here that that's just not quite right. There's got to be more here than meets the eye. Well, when awakening occurs, if you've had that feeling like this is some kind of scam, or this can't be really real, or what, I don't understand it, but if you've had all those kind of feelings, when you wake up, you'll go, oh, no wonder I had all those feelings, because that's the truth. You come to see things as they really are. You may not have a lot of duration with that if it's just a glimpse, but you are seeing the truth. It's the same truth, whether you get a 2-second glimpse, a 2-minute glimpse, or a 2-year abiding awakening, or you just whatever. But it's very unlikely you're going to get 2 years right out of the gate, I got to tell you. But we can talk about that in another video. You have to claim the awakening, which is for people who have worked with me that are watching this. Go back to the awakening, go back to the day that you were with me, remember that the best that you can. And then I want you to answer the question. And if you haven't been with me, you can, and if you had an awakening, you can still answer this, which is, who was it that woke up? What was it that woke up? I think you'll see that it wasn't Bob or Alice or Fred. It'll be known immediately. Nobody really stands up to me and says, "Oh, Bob." Nobody. I've never asked anybody that's had a genuine awakening who woke up and had them come back and tell me, "Bob, me." I've had them say me, but not Bob. And the me, we come to see that that's a false reference because there ain't no me here. There's just meanness, and there's Fredness, which is what's named, and there's meanness, which is the unnamed sense of being, but it's still a sense of being, and the sense of something is not the same thing as the truth of something. So what I want you to do is I want you to, if you've had an awakening already, or you can make a note and carry this into the future for you, so to speak, if you have not yet had your awakening or a awakening or whatever, which is you don't wake up. The unit doesn't wake up. The character doesn't wake up. God doesn't wake up. Awakeness doesn't wake up. How could awakeness wake up? Is there any capacity for sleep in this awakeness thing? Is there? Is there any capacity for sleep indicated? No. You are awakeness. And what you have to do is remember, go back to that awakening. And for those of you who work with me, come back to the idea that when I was with Fred and that awakening occurred, all questions were gone. Has there been a time in your conscious life where all the questions were gone? I'm going to bet you no. Where there were still questions, there were mysteries, there were this, that, and the other. I don't mean that the mystery is entirely unveiled, but it's pierced. So what we want to do is we just want to recognize at that moment, I knew that, quote, I was awake, but that is not awakeness talking. That's a character who remembers an event talking. Awakeness will recognize, oh, it was awakeness that woke up, and I am that awakeness. I am this living verbness. I thought awakening was something, yeah? Like this, I was hunting for this as if it was awakening. Looking for something else, looking for something other, said oneness. So recognize, accept, and claim, because if you don't claim it, what will happen is that reseeking will almost certainly occur. We call it oscillation. We call it, I like to call it now, remisidentification. But one way or the other, the seeking will start again, because the impact of that moment that you had for 2 seconds, 2 minutes, 2 hours, or whatever it was, will have faded. And memory will have come in and said, Fred had an awakening, although there is no Fred. And I can usually poke people about and get them back to brightness if they've had one of these awakenings. If they've had a clear, authentic awakening, I can usually help you get back there. But it's not actually what I do now, unless you come to skillful means. Skillful means I can do that. If you had an awakening, you'll be right at home in skillful means as I walk you through something that will help you see that, oh, I didn't think about that. I hadn't recognized that. So if you've gotten to the end, then for God's sake, you like me enough to watch 35 minutes, go out there and buy my book, my new book, which is the Book of Nothing. It is doing well, and I hope it'll do better with your help. So go get it, read it, leave me a good review. And hell, I'll see you later. Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Good luck.